We'll call this meeting to order. It's a regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for June 14th, and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get going, I wanted to see if there would be a motion to add an executive session discussion related to the bike path easement along 315. This was requested by staff.
Move that.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we'll add the executive session at the end. We do have two public hearings. The first is on the Neighborhood Assistance Act. Did we receive, is there anybody to speak to that? No. Is there a motion to close that public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. There's a second public hearing related to proposed amendments to the Historic District Commission ordinance. Did we receive any comment on this topic? No. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I think I heard Wendy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And public audience, we received one email, and I'll turn it over to Sean to read that.
All right. Thank you, Eric. So this comes from Joan Coe, Board of Selectmen meeting June 14th, 2021. On May 10th, 2021, First Selectman Eric Wellman wrote an article on Facebook stating that he will not run for First Selectman, but will continue serving in the capacity of Selectman. First Selectman Eric Wellman is a political hack and should not be reelected. Wellman is the mouthpiece for Town Manager Maria Capriola, although the Board of Selectmen should be the legislative body. The Board of Selectmen meeting should be conducted by the board, not by Town Manager Maria Capriola, who controls the narrative with consent of the Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen have allowed Town Manager Maria Capriola to control the narrative of both bodies of the town. Wellman states, quote, "I will continue to champion issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion so that we are leveraging the incredible talent that is within our community," end quote. This is just political talk, not reality. Town Manager Maria Capriola and the Board of Selectmen are acting like children by building their non-inclusive sandbox with their policies while people with diverse opinions cannot enter. There is no room for diverse opinions in this administration. By allowing Town Manager Maria Capriola to usurp the powers of the Board of Selectmen, they have condoned her actions by placing their heads in the sand and ignoring the fact that they are complicit in Town Manager Maria Capriola's actions. Town Manager Maria Capriola is a bully and a control freak with policies that undermine the Simsbury community. Both First Selectman Eric Wellman and Town Manager Maria Capriola have associated themselves with the left-wing cult of the Democratic Party, giving taxpayer monies to political organizations. The Board of Selectmen are weak and refuse to push back on Town Manager Maria Capriola's controlling influence. When I asked for salaries of town employees, I was told all inquiries must go through the Town Manager's office as an FOI request. I was told through an email on November 15th, 2019, that all inquiries must go through the Town Manager's office. It states, quote, "We, Town Manager Maria Capriola, like to have complete documentation of all information requests to the town," end quote. Town Manager Maria Capriola requires all inquiries through Freedom of Information requests. Even something as mundane as a salary that would take minutes to obtain now takes staff hours of complying with FOI requests. First Selectman Eric Wellman wrote that he will continue to pledge to continue to lead in a bipartisan manner that puts the good of the town above any individual or political party. First Selectman Eric Wellman voted to appropriate $20,000 to the Spirit Council, which has political leanings and is not bipartisan. First Selectman Eric Wellman, along with Town Manager Maria Capriola, have continued to promote cancel culture, eliminating diverse opinions, saying that they are inclusive, which they are not. In internal investigations of the vandalized Foot Locker and the internal investigation of a workplace intimidation complaint have documented that Sergeant Thibault and Sergeant Sagan display a pattern of mental health issues of bullying and anger management. As the personnel director of the police department, does Town Manager Maria Capriola believe that those officers are fit to serve in the police department? Lorenzo Milich, the Simsbury High School security guard and fired coach of the track team, has won the state championship as coach for Windsor High School. There have been over 100 views and many downloads of the affidavit filed with CHRO against Simsbury High School. The link to the affidavit is, and there's a link to that in the document. The Simsbury Police Department has received body cameras for the officers months ago. The consultant said they are ready to be installed, and the delay is due to the implementation of the policy. The police department has been directed to increase traffic enforcement. Body cameras protect the police officers against frivolous claims and all interactions with the public. The distribution of body cameras to all police officers should be priority one. What is taking so long? According to the police department, there were 138 gun permits approved in 2020. 2021 to May, there were 119 gun permits approved, which will double the amount from 2021. People can carry a gun with a permit on all town properties, including all buildings, parks, fields, and the Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts where alcohol is sold. Guns, alcohol, and mind-altering drugs are licensed for disaster. Alcoholic beverages are allowed on all town property with the exception of Simsbury school property and town buildings. Most recreational areas in Simsbury, including the golf course, allows the consumption of alcohol and carrying a gun with a permit. With an increase in family violence, suicides, alcoholism, and mental health issues, should the Board of Selectmen regulate alcohol consumption and carry a gun on town property? Is the town covered for those liabilities? All of my comments will be posted on Simsbury Patch, Twitter, Joan Co, and Facebook. And again, that was from Joan Co.
All right, thank you, Sean. I wanted to see, is there any additional public audience that we're missing? I thought someone might be joining our meeting.
They're joining now.
Okay. Okay, and it looks like Marguerite Carnell is with us. Hey, Marguerite, how are you?
Well, how are you?
Good. I see you were just let in, and I wanted to just turn the floor over to you.
Oh, goodness. Okay, let me see if I can start.
Yeah,
my-
we waste no time here.
All right, so my name is Marguerite Carnell. I live at 33 Seminary Road, and I'd like to read a brief prepared statement, if that's all right.
Of course.
So I'd like to offer my thoughts on the proposed changes to the Historic District Commission's ordinance. I served on the HDC for 7 years as a member, vice chair, and then as chair from 2017 to 2020. I'm an architectural historian and preservationist by profession, and I spent the past 25 years of my career researching, documenting, and preserving historic buildings. I work for Archaeological and Historical Services and Stores, a cultural resource management firm. At the state level, I have served on the Connecticut Historic Preservation Council since 2018. I agree with lessening the requirement of members who reside in the district to one or more. While I strongly encourage district residents to be involved, allowing more flexibility in membership would make it easier to fill vacancies. I also support the provision for a procedure for commissioners to be removed for cause, including if they are absent for more than half of the meetings in a 12-month period. However, I do not support the reduction of the quorum requirement from 4 to 3 commissioners. While it would undoubtedly make it easier to obtain a quorum, doing so has the potential over time to erode the commitment and effectiveness of the HDC and ultimately to diminish the quality of the decision that the commission makes. These changes raise questions about the nature and the purpose of the Historic District Commission. Since 1992, the town has had Certified Local Government, or CLG, status from the National Park Service. The town became a CLG in order to strengthen its preservation efforts and to become eligible for grants to support its work. In order for the town to maintain CLG status, the commission, as the only historic preservation group in Simsbury, needs to have at least 2 members with specific preservation-related credentials. It currently does not meet the CLG standards. As you may know, 3 commissioners, including myself, resigned last December after the commission voted 3-2 for a certificate of appropriateness to demolish a prominent historic tobacco barn in the district without allowing sufficient time to evaluate and document the barn's condition. Based on commissioners' comments about their perception of the value of several historic properties in the district, and especially their vote to approve the barn's demolition, I wonder whether the current commissioners see the HDC's purpose more as a neighborhood association than as the town's leading historic preservation advocate. As you contemplate these changes to the HDC ordinance, especially in light of increased development pressures, not only in the East Weatog Street district, but also in the center of town, I hope you will seriously consider the importance of Simsbury's historic resources to the town's character. We either need a strong commission or another historic preservation advocate to provide effective leadership. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marguerite, for joining us tonight. Is there any other public audience this evening? Okay. Have a good evening. We will move on to my first Selectmen's report. I just wanted to begin by acknowledging how great it has been to see so many people out this spring, people we haven't seen in more than a year. Town Hall, Eno Memorial Hall, and the Simsbury Public Library have all returned to their pre-COVID business hours as of June 1st. In-person programs and events are going to be gradually phased in throughout the summer. At Eno, small group activities such as painting, ceramics, knitting, cards, and games are resuming. Dial-a-Ride has expanded to allow for 3 riders on a bus. Blood pressure screenings, blood sugar screenings, and hearing clinics are resuming. Exercise classes will continue to be held virtually for the time being. Cheese Day is continuing in its current format, and Wednesday lunches are continuing to be held via drive-through. The Simsbury Farms pool complex is now open for the summer. There was a nice crowd over the weekend. It was great to see so many families braving the sub 80-degree temperatures on Saturday. Excited for opening day. My 9-year-old daughter subjected me to a chilly swim, but it was wonderful to see Simsbury Farms operating more or less as normal. The capacity restrictions from last summer have been lifted, and the town requests that people who are unvaccinated continue to wear masks when walking around the pool decks. Anyone who is not fully vaccinated must continue to wear masks indoors. I am thrilled that the Talcott Mountain Music Festival is back this summer at the Simsbury Meadows Performing Arts Center, featuring 5 concerts with the Hartford Symphony Orchestra. Tickets are now on sale. Adult lawn seat tickets are $15. Children 12 and under are $5. You can call 860-987-5959 for tickets, or visit the box office at the Performing Arts Center, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Lawn seating also will look like it did pre-COVID without the bubbles that we've become familiar with. You're invited to join the Simsbury Public Library and the Simsbury Spirit Council for a virtual event exploring the history and significance of Juneteenth. The program will feature music and spoken word from students in the Simsbury Public Schools, a keynote message from Arthur Miller, reflection from Greater Hartford NAACP, and a community discussion with Tanisha Grant. It takes place June 17th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. It is free, and pre-registration is required on the library's website. You can click on virtual programs. I invite you to join the town and the Old Drake Hill Flower Bridge Committee for a long-anticipated dedication of the park, Hopbrook Landing at the Flower Bridge. That'll be taking place on Saturday, June 26th, 10 a.m. to noon. Attendees are asked to register on the Parks and Rec website and park in the commuter parking lot on Iron Horse Boulevard. Finally, an update on our trails. Project plans for the Bloomfield to Terriffill multi-use trail are under final review by the State Department of Transportation for sign-off. The next and final step in the process is a peer review of the plans by CROG before the project goes to bid. Funding is in place for the project. If favorable bids are received, we anticipate construction will begin this fall and will be completed late next year. The project plans for the trail connecting Hop Meadow Street to Curtis Park are nearly complete. State and federal permit applications have been submitted and are under review. Permits are expected to be issued in the next few months. The project is not fully funded. A grant for the project under the Transportation Alternatives Set Aside is currently on a priority list and awaiting passage of a new federal transportation bill. The construction phase of that project will begin when funding is fully in place. And I'll turn it over to you, Maria, for the town manager's report.
Great, thanks, Eric. Good evening, everyone. So a quick update on vaccination stats for folks living in our town. Data that was ending June 9th is reporting that 17,770 of our Simsbury residents have received at least their first dose of the vaccine. That is just under 70% of the population. And another just under 62% of those folks are now fully vaccinated. We do have some more data by age group. So for folks between the ages of 15 and 44, just over 87.5% of those eligible have received their first dose, and just about 75% are fully vaccinated. Amongst people ages 45 to 64, a little over 80% of those eligible have received their first dose, while a little over 73% are fully vaccinated. And as we've reported earlier, folks age 65 and over are essentially 100% fully vaccinated. And we've continued to, as we're seeing case numbers trend downwards within the larger community, that is also happening here for us amongst our workforce as well. So for the month of May and for June, month to date, we've been very fortunate. We haven't had any positive staff cases, nor have we had any staff members quarantined. So that's a very big change from just, even a month and a half ago. Our social services department is continuing to see a bit of an uptick that we believe is still pandemic related. In their most recent Tuesday program, they assisted 98 households, which included 24 homebound deliveries, and they also provided 22 kid-friendly bags. Prior to the pandemic, you may recall we were serving about 80 households monthly. So again, that number is just about 20 or so higher households higher than normal, but it's definitely reduced from the peak of 140 during the earlier phases of the pandemic. Another neat thing that our staff was able to do during Tuesday this month is through our youth services grant that we received, is they were able to provide 18 bicycle helmets to children. We are anticipating returning to in-person meetings of our various town agencies between June 28th and June 30th. We have identified a hybrid remote technology solution for meetings post June 28th. We're currently testing that technology. We are using L Labs, which is a neat product in that it is a camera that will pick up on whomever is speaking. It not only picks up on the audio, but it picks up on the visual as well. And again, that will enable us to provide remote meetings for our staff and residents and members of our agencies. In aggregate, we are planning to at least initially install this technology in 3 to 5 meeting rooms between the library and town hall. Under Board of Selectmen business, a quick update on our Meadowood acquisition. As you know, a number of the grants that were anticipated, we are starting to receive notification of formal awards of those grants. And we are working with the Trust for Public Land for a closing date of most likely mid-September on the property. There are many tasks that we still need to complete at a staff level in order for that closing to happen. Some will also require Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, or Planning Commission action throughout the summer. Just some examples of some of the remaining work we have left are things such as finalizing the surveying on the property, updating our environmental review, and then having your board and the Board of Finance appropriate the grant monies as they come in. For department news and notes, Aquarian provided information on 2 projects that are going to be occurring throughout the summer. One is a water main replacement project on Musket Trail. They are expecting that project to be completed by the end of July. They'll be continuing to work on additional water main replacements on Powderhorn Drive, Flintock Ridge, and Hawks Lane, those being completed later in 2021. They did provide contact information for Aquarian should folks have questions about the project. And then you may recall from some previous meetings, they are also working on their access road to their treatment plant, which is located off of Stratton Brook. And that project continues. And they are expecting that work will generally occur between June 17th through September. So you may recall that folks may see some temporary trail closures in that area while that work is occurring. From our finance department, we have a new appointment in our assessor's office. I'd like you to join me in congratulating Deb Forbes. She will be the new assessor's aide, and she's joining our team next Monday, June 21st. Deb has a bachelor's degree in paralegal studies. She's had extensive experience as an executive administrative assistant, lots of customer service experience and work in legal matters. So we're really excited to have her come on board. And for the police department, we recently hired 2 entry-level patrol officers, Samantha Rosa and Jeff Vollmer. Both of them are currently at the police academy. Sam has worked in a number of positions while she was obtaining her bachelor's degree from Eastern Connecticut State University. Her concentration was in human resources management. She has done internships, for example, with a municipality here in Connecticut, as well as a private financial group, and she's currently pursuing her EMT certification. And Jeff recently completed 9 years of service in the United States Navy. He was a first-class petty officer stationed in Groton. He had a number of duties, which included supervision of personnel, care, inspection, and maintenance of equipment and weapons system, amongst other duties. We are expecting them to graduate the police academy toward the end of this calendar year. After that, there is a field training component that typically lasts about 3 to 4 months. So we just want to say congratulations and welcome to both Sam and Jeff. And from Public Works, we recently, over this most recent weekend, had our household hazardous waste collection here in Simsbury. We had over 600 vehicles come out, which is, quite incredible. You may recall that is a regional partnership. And so in addition to Simsbury residents, we had folks from Avon, Canton, Farmington, Granby, and Suffield as well. And the next event is planned for October 16th for folks to mark your calendars. We also have a couple of reminders from social services that have been in past reports regarding renter's rebate and blood pressure and blood sugar screenings and hearing clinics. And then from the town manager's office, I am pleased to announce that I have been appointed to the board of directors for the Council of Small Towns, also known as COST. I think that group does a lot of really good work on behalf of municipalities of 35,000 people and less. So really happy to help them continue the very good work that they're doing. And that concludes my report this evening.
Great. Thanks, Maria. Great organization, unfortunate acronym, and I'm glad that you're on their board.
Thank you.
Right. Why don't we jump into Selectmen action? The first is the Neighborhood Assistance Act program proposals. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the Neighborhood Assistance Act program applications as presented and to authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to submit the applications for Department of Revenue Services and also to designate Deputy Town Manager Melissa Appleby as the municipal liaison?
Move that.
So I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion?
I was excited to see the application for the land. So
Yes.
that would be wonderful if that went through.
Yes, agreed. You're talking, Jackie, about the open space acquisition fund? Yeah.
Put some money into that fund. That would be wonderful.
Agreed. Yeah, thank you again for that suggestion. We did get a good clarification from the state on that program, because typically if you don't spend the received funds within about a 2-year period, you have to return the funds. But with open space acquisitions, you may or may not have an opportunity to expend those funds depending on if you don't have a pending purchase. And they were very understanding about that and indicated to us that we would not need to return the funds if they weren't expended within 2 years. So that was very good news.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion is out there. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Item B is tax refund requests. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the presented tax refunds in the amount of $1,183.57 and authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute the tax refunds?
So moved, I guess.
I heard
I'll
Wendy and then
Oh.
Mike, do you
I'll
second?
second it.
Okay,
I'll
all in
second.
favor?
Aye.
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 Item C is the Simsbury Public Library ARPA grant. So this is grant money that's available under the American Recovery Plan Act that's specific to museums and libraries. And the library is interested in purchasing a book bike as well as lockers that would allow the public to pick up material regardless of the time of day. And is anyone prepared to share the image of the bike? Let's do a little screen share because this is pretty neat. I know we have Lisa Kareem with us from the library. Lisa, is there anything you wanted to talk to here?
Well, first, I'd like to say that this book bike has been something that the library has been dreaming about since 2014 when I first started working on it, but we could never find funding to get it. And Stephanie Prado picked up work on it in 2018. And again, we couldn't find funding to do it. But we think since Simsbury is a silver level bike friendly community, that this perfectly aligns with the culture and the community and the outdoor life that people have here. So we are very excited that this could actually be funded at this point. And of course, the lockers really expand library service 24/7, so much more than we already have with our remote resources. So we're excited about that as well. It's also a really good opportunity to leverage grant funding using some of the gifts to the library as well. So,
What questions do members of the board have?
Hi, Lisa. It's Chris Peterson. How are you?
all right, how are you, Chris?
Good. I apologize. First one to admit that I haven't been able to catch some of the meetings with, quite often the library board conflicts with BOS meetings and then kids sports, which is my primary duty. So it feels like I have not heard discussion around the bike library, but so just maybe a little more, again, self-admitted, I haven't been to the best attendee, but a little more about like how it's used, where it's stored, what does it actually do, who uses it, who's going to be biking around. I mean, you have to, that is it actually biked up there, or is it more of a marketing piece? So get you a little bit of color around that, please.
Sure. It's actually both a bike that holds resources from the library and serves as an outreach model, but it is also a display piece, and it's a way to engage the community and market our services as well. Storage has yet to be decided. We may actually use it as a display piece within the building when it's not in use out in the community. In our minds, we're planning for it to be out in the community at least once a week, spring to fall. One of the things that we saw when the library did the strategic plan back in 2016 is that people in Tarryville feel that they're very underserved by the library, and we agree with that. So we would love to have the book bike go off to Tarryville regularly so people could borrow material from it and use the Wi-Fi hotspot, and we can engage them with all of our services and of course distribute library cards.
And I'm going to assume that this gets put in the back of a pickup truck and brought up to Tarryville. I mean, I can't imagine one of you folks is going to be wheeling it on up there on yourself,
Well, it's an e-bike, so it will be assisted. And yes, we do have staff members that are very eager to get on this bike and take it out and show it off and engage with the community. So,
okay. I imagine we'll have to think about liabilities around that, Maria. Whose cost for that on the road, and just make sure that that's a consideration that we've got everybody covered there.
Yes, definitely, Chris. Thank you. And actually, Melissa takes care of most of our risk management responsibilities. She's on vacation this week, but she is sharing that information with Kerma and working on the risk management aspects of this. But thank you. That is a very good point.
Yeah, and I think just for the public's understanding, this is something that is really more of a process component that we're going through, that if the libraries has the option to apply for this through the ARPA and they deem that the money is there, the matching funds are there from their own funds. It's not necessarily something that we are taking a position on from an expenditure standpoint of taxpayer dollars. I just want the public to know that as well. So
yes. That's absolutely true. The funding that the library board will be expending to leverage would be funding that were gifts and donations specifically to the library.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a question, Lisa.
Sure.
So it also talks about the lockers. So this is a double ask, correct?
Yes.
Of the ARPA funds.
Yes.
And I guess the question I have is the library ARPA funds similar to the Board of Ed funds, that it's up to the library director, in the town to decide its use, or does it have to go through the library board of trustees to approve the use? How is that process?
Well, because of the charter requirements here, the Board of Selectmen obviously has to approve the grant before it can be submitted. And of course, the library board always approves grants before we submit them as well. And then it
Okay.
goes to the state library, and they are ultimately the ones who decide whether or not to fund.
Okay. And just for fun, what's the price on the bike? I couldn't really get that out of the,
I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it is about $5,000.
okay. Okay. And just one thing, can you just remind me, in the sound, using it in Terriffill, I kind of understand that idea as long as you can get the bike there without going up Quarry. But wasn't there in the past, the Terriffill school library used to be open during the summers, or did I make that up?
No, that was actually the case, but that was before my time coming to Simsbury. It would be something we'd be very interested in doing again in the future, though.
Okay, because that was great. Kids could walk to the library in the summer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It's
And then
just,
the-
it's not just,
Okay.
it's not Wendy, just not the, we talked about this back when the whole school sort of reval occurred, right? And that's like, it would be great if not only libraries, but the gymnasiums were open for kids for activities. But,
Yeah.
that's a cost nut we'll have to crack some other way. But, we have these schools that are being completely underutilized in the summertime, and it's too bad that we can't utilize them for learning and enrichment in other ways. So.
Okay. And I had one more question. I know that the library now does outreach and deliveries to people for books, or you did during COVID. Is this to complement that or to add to that capability, which exists today?
The Books to Your Door program is actually a program of the Friends of the Library, and it is delivery to homebound people. So this would be in addition to and complementary to, but not the same at all.
Okay. And the money you said is coming out of the library funds?
The
special
library board
revenue.
discretionary fund, yes. Mhm, the
Okay.
special revenue fund.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Are there other questions from the board?
Just as we look at the capital expenditures of the library coming, nothing else that we're going to have to fund in the next couple of years qualifies? Lisa, as we look
For
at
the ARPA funding, no.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it may qualify through the municipal
Hmm.
chain, but not through the library chain.
Okay. That makes sense. I assume we looked at that. I love this idea. I think it's really cool.
Well, it was neat to see that bike was from Cleveland Heights. I lived in Cleveland Heights for 10 years and had no idea we had a book bike. There you go. All right. So there's no more
Let's not have
questions.
that happen here.
Yeah, exactly. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the library's application for an American Recovery Plan Act grant in the amount of $19,401 to fund a book bike, which will be used for outreach activities throughout the community, as well as a contactless pickup locker system, which will allow library users to pick up reserved material 24/7. And further, to accept the American Recovery Plan Act grant, should it be awarded, and authorize Town Manager Maria Capriola to execute all the documents related to the grant award. And see,
So moved.
Chris was trying to pull himself off of mute there. So Chris moved. Is there a second?
Second.
I was like slow motion. Thank you, Jackie. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Item D is a donation from Eleanor and Wayne Hoffman. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to accept the donation from Eleanor and Wayne Hoffman in the amount of $2,000 for the purpose of supporting Simsbury Community and Social Services Department programs?
So moved.
I'll second that with our thanks.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item E, is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to accept a donation from Mark and Diane Orenstein in the amount of $1,765 for the purpose of supporting Simsbury Community and Social Services Department programs to help residents affected by the COVID pandemic and other purposes at the discretion of the department?
I'll move that, and a thank you to Mark and Diane.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. With our thanks.
Item F, is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to accept a donation from Trinity Episcopal Church in the amount of $3,383.73 for the purpose of supporting Simsbury Community and Social Services Department's food pantry which assists residents in need.
So moved with our thanks.
Second.
Jackie moved, Wendy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item G is a donation of 2 speed display signs. This comes from the Connecticut Training and Technical Assistance Center at UConn, which is distributing signs that display the speed of drivers to towns across Connecticut. Simsbury is slated to receive 2 such signs, and under our gift ordinance, we would need to accept this donation, which has a $9,000 value. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to accept a donation from the Connecticut Training and Technical Assistance Center, T2 Center, at the University of Connecticut of 2 speed display signs?
We'll move that.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item H is a proposed public gathering permit for Pride events. So June is LGBT Pride Month. You can see behind me is a flag that I'm hanging in my office. And one of the 2 events that are being planned, this one would be on Wednesday at 5 p.m., a flag raising outside of Town Hall. And the second event on June 26th, which would be a picnic, followed by a ribbon tying at the Performing Arts Center fence. And I just wanted to recognize Aaliyah Vandal, who's with us, who's helping to organize these events. And Aaliyah, I just wanted to see what you would like to add.
Thanks so much, Eric, and thanks to
Of course.
everyone for having me. I have a very short statement that I just wanted to read, if that's okay with.
Of course.
So to me, I get a lot of questions being out in the community, why flags are important, why signs are important. And I just want to remind everyone that for so long, those in the LGBTQ community really walked through life alone, being afraid of how many people would find out about who they were, who they loved, and just the feeling of loneliness that so many people in the community had. So today, one of the most fundamental aspects, to me at least, for Pride celebrations is community, that we let those in the community know that they're not alone, and for those in the community to be able to celebrate that. And this is important to me, at least not only for those of us who can actively participate in the community right now, but for the kids in our community, no matter how they grow up to identify, to know that when they're here, when they're in Simsbury, they're somewhere that they're safe and loved and respected, and they can be who they are, whoever that is. So one of the ways that we can really send that message is by hosting annual town events like the Pride Picnic and taking action to increase the visibility of our town's acceptance through actions like raising the rainbow pride flag. So I just wanted to ask for your support in these events and also just supporting the LGBTQ community moving forward. Thanks.
Aaliyah, thank you so much for sharing that statement and reflection with us. I wanted to see if there were any questions for the board, either for Aaliyah or for staff on this item. Okay, let's see if I can find the motion. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the public gathering application on behalf of the Simsbury LGBTQ community to authorize the issuance of the public gathering permit for a flag raising ceremony at Town Hall on June 16th and a picnic event at Schultz Park and ribbon tying display at Rotary Park on June 26th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Aaliyah, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank
and thanks
you.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to
Have a
seeing the
Wednesday.
community at these events.
Bye.
Bye. Take care. Item I is a proposed parks facility maintenance technician classification. So the budget that takes effect July 1 includes a new parks position, which is a facility maintenance technician. And in your packets is a proposed job description and classification, which was approved last week by the Personnel Subcommittee. Just wanted to see if there was anything that staff wanted to add on this item or any questions from the board. Okay. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the creation of the position classification of Parks Facility Maintenance Technician and the job description and pay grade as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item J is the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Grant Resolution. The town recently learned that we've been awarded a grant of $400,000 from the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Program. The grant supports the purchase of the Meadowwood open space parcel. Maria, anything that you wanted to add on this item?
Just a reminder that you all had authorized us to submit this grant application. I think it was early July of last year. It did take a bit of time to hear back from the state, and the amount we were going to receive was a bit in flux, but ultimately they did award us $400,000 towards the acquisition. So that's very exciting news. We had a sense back in, I believe it was around early March, late February, that we thought that's where the grant number might land. And this particular resolution is just wording that the granting agency requires the legislative body to adopt.
Okay, are there any questions? Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the Open Space and Watershed Land Acquisition Program resolution as presented?
That.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Wendy? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. I'm sorry, Jackie, were you?
I was trying to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't have any concern with that, but there's two of these different, there's a grant resolution and then a supplemental appropriation. Could you just explain that? Thanks.
Maria?
Sure, absolutely. Since we were uncertain during the earlier phases of budget in terms of where the grant number might land, and we didn't actually receive official notification until I believe just within the last week or so, we didn't include the grant revenue as part of the capital project. So now that we have a firm number of $400,000, we essentially will be taking in that revenue, and then we need to appropriate it to the project. So this would just be a supplemental appropriation to essentially appropriate that revenue to the project. And then the Board of Finance would come next at their meeting tomorrow night.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Assumption, so I appreciate that.
Of course, of course.
Item K is what we were just describing, is the appropriation. Before I read the motion, were there any questions on this piece? Okay. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the supplemental appropriation for the Meadowwood purchase as presented and recommend its approval to the Board of Finance?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Item I is another supplemental appropriation. This for repairs to the Simsbury Public Library boiler and HVAC controls. So some repairs are needed to one of the boilers as well as the HVAC controllers, requiring a supplemental appropriation of $25,000. And I wanted to see if, Maria, what you could add to this.
Sure. So we started to experience a failure in one of our two boilers at the library during the colder months, but did our best to keep the boiler moving along, given the fact that it was winter. But now that we are in a much warmer season, now would be a good time to move forward with those emergency repairs. Again, it was unexpected. We did have this work planned for 5+ years out on the facilities master plan. And one of the two boilers is still in good working order. So our recommendation at this time is to proceed with repairing the one boiler that is leaking. And then the other issue that we had recently at the library is that some of our HVAC controllers have started to experience some unexpected failures. So we would like to proceed with going ahead to repair those controllers just to improve system reliability.
Were there any questions for Maria?
Why didn't this come up during the budget?
Yeah.
In terms of the boiler that was leaking?
Yeah, I mean, if we knew it was leaking and there was going to have to be a repair, is this something we probably should have budgeted for?
Are you saying that it was? Are you saying it was out in outer years as an outer years as an anticipation, and then it just ultimately failed quicker? Is that what's happened?
Right. We had expected sort of routine replacement and repair 5+ years, sort of out on the horizon. And then we started to experience the failures over the winter. I have to go back, Sean, and see at what point, was it February, March, April? I don't recall.
Yeah, and I'm not implying anything here. It's just this
Yeah.
would be good for folks to escalate to us during the budget process. It's not a big deal. It all comes out of the same pot.
Yeah.
But if we knew about it before we sent the final budget onto the Board of Finance, it would have been good to put it in.
Mm-hmm. And to do the work, say July 1st, as opposed to now.
Anyways,
maybe. I mean, I'm not sure it matters, right? Because we don't need the heating system until November.
Right.
So,
And I do believe that the HVAC controllers are a more recent development.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking about the heater.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Again, I think it's fine either way.
Okay.
Does this come out of capital reserves? Is this where the funding's going to come from?
I believe that our finance director had recommended doing it through year-end savings that we'll have, so cleaning it up through that process.
Okay. But it's really a capital project, correct? So
Right.
Just curious as why it comes from there, not capital reserves.
Sure. Amy, do you want to elaborate on that?
So there's really no right or wrong way to do it. We could take it out of capital reserves, but all you're doing is reducing your reserve amount, especially at the end of the year. We know that we're going to have a lot of excess. So why not just use current year funds instead of reducing our reserves? And so it limits the amount that we recommend transferring over to reserves at the end of the year. So there is no right or wrong way. It's just my preference, just to know that we're already going to have the money to cover it, so I'm not moving back and forth between the reserve.
What do we know what our year-end savings are going to be yet? Do we have a projection?
Yeah, so at the last board meeting, I reported out it's probably around $700,000.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that would go to the general fund, right? Reserves, Amy, automatically.
So it does go to the general fund, but usually at the end of the year when we're closing out, we clear up the capital projects funds, any deficits in any other funds, and then it's always our recommendation to move it into the capital reserve.
Right, but first and foremost, it goes to the general fund, and then you got to move it out of general fund into capital reserve. All right, and if we take it from capital reserve now and we don't put something back in August when we clean it up, then we've depleted the capital reserve fund for future use.
Well, not depleted, but reduced by the amount of the appropriation.
Reduced. Sorry, wrong words, but reduced. Yes.
Well, it sounds like we have enough year-end savings coming. So.
Yep.
Any other questions? Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the supplemental appropriation request of $25,000 for the repair of the boiler and the HVAC controllers at the Simsbury Public Library and recommend its approval to the Board of Finance?
Move that. Second.
I heard Chris and then Sean, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Item M is a neat project between the Economic Development Commission and the Chamber of Commerce, but my understanding is it's not quite ready for us, so staff requested that we table this item. Is there a motion to table?
So
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item N is a supplemental appropriation request for the Spirit Council. Spirit Council, which is our committee focused on issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, has requested funds for a data collection project. This was originally slated to be part of the budget for the upcoming fiscal year, and the Board of Finance opted to fund this project instead with a supplemental appropriation using savings, year-end savings. So I wanted to see if there were any questions on this item.
This is the plan.
This is the plan. And we have Nicole with us from the Spirit Council. Anything you wanted to add, Nicole? Okay. Let me get the motion. Is there
I have a question.
Sure.
Well, the way I read this was that we weren't waiting till year-end savings, that we were doing it now.
Yep.
So
Correct.
why aren't we waiting till year-end savings, which is what we agreed to, I thought, at the finance meeting? If somebody has that answer.
Same reason we just paid for the HVAC system with year-end savings that we haven't yet gotten for.
But is
Yeah,
there
but
a need?
I think that's different. I think what Wendy's question is, and my query, that's different. That's an event that's come upon us unexpectedly. We had a plan. So I'm not questioning the request. I'm questioning how we've spoken about it and agreed to it and understood it and presented it previously. And now that's changing. So that's what
It's
I
not
want.
changing. It's the same pool of money. It's just a matter of a date. The money and the source is not changing, guys. It's still coming out of the 700,000 that Amy just told us we have. All we're doing is, instead of arbitrarily waiting to wait till July 2nd when the new fiscal year starts, which was what was going to happen because of the budget process. When you put something in next year's budget, you make everybody wait until that fiscal year starts. That was an arbitrary wait. By doing it now, we're authorizing them to go do the work that we all agreed to let them do, that they're working on the contract for, and it comes out of the same account in the same accounting at the end of the year.
Okay, I think that what I was agreeing to, or what I was presenting to, was the fact that it would be actually a year away.
No, this year's year-end savings.
Look, I was thinking it was because we were considering it for next year's budget. We'd be taking it for next year's budget.
No, the Board of Finance told us to take it out and pay for it in this year's year-end savings.
So
that's yeah. Go ahead.
I just need to call on. So there's an immediate need, I guess, is what I'm hearing, to not wait till July to have that money today. I don't know if you could just explain. I mean, we all agreed to the money, so it's not a question of doing it. It's just the timing. It's just what I'm asking about.
If I could just, I'm so sorry, Nicole, to jump ahead. I just wanted to clarify. So typically when we do sort of those year-end savings and closeouts and adjustments that Amy was referencing, we'll typically bring that to the Board of Selectmen at approximately your first meeting in September. And then it then goes to the Board of Finance. So that if we were to kind of do it as part of that process, the funds wouldn't be available until about mid-September, versus if we do it now, the funds would be available sooner, assuming that we could proceed, with the project work, the full scope of the project work a little sooner.
Okay. So just one more clarification. It's in here. It mentions it could also come out of the general fund reserve, but we're saying right now it's definitely coming out of year-end savings, because we've just said we have $600,000 to $700,000. Correct. So that's how it's going to be earmarked. Okay.
Okay. And Nicole, you're on mute. Were you talking to us? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, how many times have I not done that, and then I do it tonight?
That's a 2020 thing. You're on mute. Said it a million times.
Sorry. Just to clarify the spirit position on this, we're not trying to play a game or move something forward that isn't on the up and up. We had originally presented, if you recall, the $3,000 interim mid-cycle request to get us started from March to June. But to my knowledge, that contract has not been approved yet, and we haven't begun that work. So the remaining 22 we had presented in the budget cycle, and the Board of Finance did direct, I guess, you guys, they voted on pulling it forward to the end of this year through the excess reserves.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that what we were doing was lumping the whole 25 together now, and we're still waiting to get started. So the data committee is on hold at this point until we can get that funding started.
Yeah, and that's the urgency, is that this foundational work for the Spirit Council that's been on hold till the money exists to move forward.
For the town, really.
Yeah, right. Was there any other questions from the board? Okay. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the supplemental appropriation for additional funding for the Simsbury Spirit Council in the amount of $22,000 to support the data collection and analysis efforts?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, Nicole, for being with us tonight. Item O is, let me make sure I've got the right item. Yes, item O is the American Rescue Plan Act, uses for recovery funds. This item is a discussion item. No action will be taken tonight, but a very important item that I want to draw our community's attention to. The American Rescue Plan Act, passed by Congress, provides billions of dollars to state and local governments across the country to support recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. And Simsbury is anticipating receiving more than $7.5 million over the next couple of years. Really a rare opportunity to make some strategic investments in our community. And tonight is an opportunity to learn more about this funding, how it can be used, and to start the discussion about what that may look like in Simsbury. So the first thing I wanted to do is turn it over to either Maria or Amy, just to give an overview of the program, the criteria for how the money could be used. And then I thought we could share the spreadsheet on the screen, which is really staff's first pass at what could qualify and to get this group's reaction to start the conversation.
Eric, I'll start off and then Maria will jump in with her comments after. So like you said, we're expected to receive about $7.5 million. Of that, the town's allocation is almost 2.6 million. And then the county allocation that we're expected to receive as part of our share is almost $5 million. So the $7.5 million, we're going to get 50% this year, and then we're going to get 50% next year. And the overview of the funds, just very high level, is to support public health response, to replace any lost revenue in the public sector, improvements to water and sewer infrastructures, equity-focused services, negative economic impacts, premium pay to essential workers, and improvements to broadband. But as you start reading through the guidance, there are definitely restrictions on those categories. Some of them we don't even qualify for example, the revenue loss based on the formula that they gave us. And then a lot of the housing focused stuff for the economic impact, we don't qualify for that as well. You have to be part of a qualified census tract in order for it to be something that you can automatically use your money on, and Simsbury does not qualify as part of one of those identified areas. So with that said, we are, a lot of communities are having, a harder time coming up with how they're going to use these funds because they are getting so many funds. So in my, the GFOA board that I'm on, we've kind of all gone back and forth as finance directors. The most feedback I've been able to get thus far is a lot of towns are using it on sewer infrastructure, economic development grants for impacted businesses, and broadband. Those have been the main items that people are striving for right now. But just overall in general, in order to utilize these funds, because in the guidance it was not an all-inclusive list, two things have to be considered. You have to specifically identify the need or the negative impact that COVID caused, and then how that program or service is going to address that need or impact. So that's your basic criteria right there. So what did COVID do to you and how are you going to fix it? So I don't know if Maria wants to take you through the spreadsheet, but I also know she has some comment on what CCM is looking at currently, because so many towns are struggling to figure out how they're going to be able to utilize these funds. I think CCM is going back with some feedback in order to hope we can broaden the use of the funds, but I'll let Maria speak to that.
Yeah, Amy, thank you so much. That's a very good overview and start for the conversation. You know, one of the things as we've worked through the guidance and attended some webinars is the guidance in many ways, I think, is geared a bit more towards entitlement communities, which are communities of 50,000 people or greater, and a lot of the challenges that those communities face. But what we're hearing from a lot of our counterparts, municipal CEOs, municipal finance directors, and more, smaller and medium-sized communities, is that as the guidance is currently written, it would be actually very difficult for us to spend the dollars that are being sent our way because the uses are, restrictive in many ways because we don't have those qualified census tracts, unfortunately. I had hoped that perhaps that Terriffill might have a sufficient number of low to moderate income residents for the purposes of the census tract, that we might be able to do some really neat economic development and infrastructure projects in that neighborhood. We have about plus or minus about 40% of our residents who live in Terriffill that meet that LMI definition for HUD purposes and census tract purposes. But unfortunately, Terriffill didn't even reach a threshold to be a qualified census tract under the guidance. And so what we are again hearing from CCM and some of our counterparts is that, again, this is a common theme. CCM has put together a work group of some municipal officials to provide this feedback in a way to our federal officials and to share with them, again, the challenges that we would be facing. So as Amy's presented the information, it's the best information we have available now. It's the guidance we have available to us at this point in time. Perhaps it may change, later in the year. It's something we'll certainly, keep an eye on. Another interesting piece that we learned recently is we were originally hearing that we would need to expend the funds by 2024. What we've now learned is that we have to commit the funds by 2024, and they could be spent as long as they were committed as late as 2026. So that's, again, a neat opportunity for us to stretch out those dollars in our community for a longer period of time. We have gone ahead and Tom, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the spreadsheet, based on conversations with the Board of Selectmen, some potential projects or items that you sent our way. We also consulted with staff to really try and determine, what might be some ways that we could use these dollars to invest in our community. Amy then took that list and flagged for us whether or not it was a permitted use. Maybe it's a permitted use, or no, it's not a permitted use. So this is, at this point in time, just really, I think for discussion purposes and feedback, of those items that are flagged as yes or maybe, I think what would be particularly helpful for us, if there are some that you're just not gravitating towards at all, because we certainly won't spend additional time researching those potential uses if you're just not interested in them. Of the potential items, there's really just one potential use that Amy and I believe might be a way to substantially use the funds. And we could do essentially ventilation and HVAC improvements to all of our town and school buildings. Those are in various phases of our master planning for our town and school facilities in future years. They tend to be very expensive projects. So that item may be a good way to potentially use some of these dollars, which would ultimately take pressure off of our capital budget in future years. A lot of the other items I think are neat and could add value. But again, they're much smaller sort of dollar items, $10, $15, $20,000, things of that nature. So I would just, again, really like to get some feedback from folks if there are, again, are items that you're just not gravitating towards at all, or perhaps other items you might like us to research.
Before we dive into specific items, I just wanted to see if there were more general questions about the qualifications of the process, since you've covered a lot. Were there any questions from the board?
Question.
Yeah.
Just in general, because I didn't see it on this spreadsheet. So Maria, you brought up broadband. It has Amy already said we don't, I can see your face.
Yeah. It's so unfortunate. So under Connecticut regulations at this point in time, PURA is the regulatory authority for broadband, and municipalities in Connecticut are not allowed to operate and own our own municipal broadband utility. Unfortunately, there are many other parts of the country, many other states where they can do that. And there's been a lot of success with that in some other parts of the country, particularly in more rural areas where the municipality has, kind of taken their own fate into their own hands and have really been able to improve that access to broadband and high-speed internet. Again, unfortunately, in Connecticut, we can't do that under our regulation. So it's a bit of a missed opportunity for us at the municipal level.
Can we collaborate so that we don't own it? No, Sean's shaking his head no.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Essentially pay for the infrastructure for the utility company?
If we could collaborate, correct, if we provided the funds, we worked out a plan, maybe they came up with a plan that we work in conjunction with them, that they could expand, but here's the money. We're willing to give you the money to improve our coverage from Granby Town Line to Avon Town Line, but without us owning it. Go ahead.
Do we not have broadband? I mean, we have broadband's delivered through cable, right? I mean, we have internet access on every wire in town, Jackie. So I guess what are you getting at?
Better
Where?
net coverage. I will tell you, I've talked to Maria and
We can't fix Comcast. I mean, Comcast sucks, right?
all joking aside, beside our residents, this could help any resident who now is working from home.
Yeah.
There's a weakness right in downtown Simsbury, right on Route 10 and 202, where my office drops out. So now we can't use, internet, phone drops out. And you and I both know other businesses that drop out. So
You're talking about cell phone service there, though, right?
not just cell phone service. I'm
Okay.
talking internet. So whoever the provider is, because I'm going to assume my office is not the same provider as some of our small businesses. So I would just like to know, I guess, is this something we could expand? Maybe we don't have to own it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, again, Maria, I mean, I think she's referencing the public safety issue we had with Verizon in terms of the downtown cell phone service where they put a booster or something at the old Apollos, right, or something like that. But it still hasn't fully addressed it, and there's still issues on Bushy Hill as well.
Simsbury and North Simsbury,
Yeah,
absolutely a public safety issue.
yeah, there are dead spots for cell phone services for sure in town still.
So when will, I'm kind of going along the lines with Jackie, when will we could, when will you feel comfortable, Maria and team, actually saying, okay, I understand what I can use this money for and I can't use this money for, because I don't want to go through an inefficient process, which it seemingly we've been paring down. But when are you ready to actually have, for me, which would be a separate meeting with concrete, a concrete understanding of what we can't and can't, so we're not wasting a lot of time.
Yeah, so again, I think that the items that we've flagged as yes, at this point in time, we do believe that the items on the spreadsheet that are flagged as yes are items that we could pursue. Again, if there was interest from the board in pursuing those items. The items that are flagged as maybe, Chris, we would have to do additional research. But what I'm also trying to avoid is that if there's certain items that are flagged that you guys just really have no interest in, it would, I think, be helpful.
Well, I think from a process standpoint, these are so big. I listen, the last person who wants to have a special meeting is me. but I would rather than be asked to say, are these important to me or not, tonight or in a spreadsheet on my small screen, I'd rather wait for we're back in person.
Okay.
And we're working collaboratively and talking and working across the table from each other to discuss each of these in more depth. That's what I would prefer, one. And two, I think as I think about this money, the sort of the filter that I'm putting it towards is how does each of these dollars impact the widest number of people, considering that we've all paid for this money and in theory, and rather than it be back towards the rescue plans, which are critical, have largely been targeted at organizations or parts of the population that need them, rather than being broadly dispersed. And I would think that this is our opportunity to invest back into the most amount of people in our community versus targeted money towards targeted folks. That's kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if we could add on maybe for some of these are outside agencies that we would partner with. So to Jackie's point of broadband or otherwise, and I'm looking at, Promise to Jordan and Gifts of Love, the ambulance VNA, where there might be a need for them to prove that. Obviously we can't create that proof. Is there a form? Is there a template, Amy, that you and Maria recommend? Again, I don't want to put people through a big process, but here are the 10 pieces of information we need that checks the box, and then we can give you money, right? That would be helpful too, as we're informing it. So we're not debating organizations when we get to it that can't prove the need or don't, won't prove the need or whatever too.
Mhm.
Because I think that's important. I assume, the ambulance could benefit from this. Again, Promise to Jordan, Gifts of Love. Certainly these are organizations and others that help folks at their worst times. And, certainly mental health and substance abuse, food insecurity. But, what data do they need so that we can make sure that this, stays clean for the feds? So.
We could probably come up with something. There's certain agencies that deal with domestic violence that are basically automatically eligible because there's been an increase in domestic violence since the pandemic.
Okay.
So they wouldn't necessarily have to show a need. But again, there's other organizations where they're not specifically spelled out in the guidance where they would have to show a need. So yeah, we could probably put something together on that.
I think that would be really helpful. Like I maybe Interville House automatically qualifies, right? And that's something we've given to them. But, again, the other folks and, again, because there's a lot of facets to this. I was talking in front of mine, I was talking to the folks down at Promise to Jordan this weekend. And obviously they're seeing a huge uptick in the mental health and substance abuse challenges as a result of COVID and all of us being trapped at home and losing our support systems and such. So I think the need is out there in our community. And maybe this is a way that we can just facilitate those folks providing the couple of data points we need to make that decision. To Chris, your point of expediting the approval process, because I'm hoping we're going to be able to say yes to a lot of folks that support our community in a lot of different ways here.
The one thing I would just be careful with is how do we do this in a subjective manner and not create like an administrative bottleneck or a lot of work for the town. If there's either an outside agency or something that could handle these kind of requests for us, something like that. I just feel, how do we pick and choose who we're going to give the money to?
Yeah. Well, Wendy, to that point, part of me thinks that by making it administrative, by coming up with, these are the, 10 criteria, this is the form, we approve the pot of money, but it's up to staff or, whoever we designate to determine, yes, this organization qualifies. At least that's the way I'm thinking about it. Because this reminds me of during budget process around the outside agency funding requests. And for every organization we give to, there are plenty of qualified organizations that don't get money.
Right.
So I'd like to make this as objective as possible.
I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Maria.
I was going to say, and Eric, yeah, absolutely. I think we could do something probably pretty similar to that. So during the outside agency grant process, during the budget process, Tom in my office collects, certain pieces of information that we require of agencies that are submitting their grant applications. He reviews their financials. He reviews some other documentation. If there's any potential issues or concerns, he's very good about bringing those to myself and Melissa and Amy for further review. So I would suspect we could do something similar, some sort of form as Amy discussed, and then again, probably some sort of review of certain materials.
So maybe even further, Eric, along your guidelines, and then Chris, I assume this would make you happy if we tranche the money out into the buckets, right? $500,000 for housing, 250,000 this year, 250,000 next year for community support for those organizations, $1 million for, whatever. If we break that up and then staff can support, filling in those requests, right? Kind of like the public gathering permit process.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that makes a lot of sense.
I have some bigger level questions. I just, there's the National League of Cities, I think that did the presentation, right, last week. And they presented the 4 criteria. There was 4 criteria in that presentation that you had to make sure that you met. So it would be good to see the ideas and how they meet or not meet the criteria, like funnel through that as a first level to get to the next level. Then what is our criteria? Are we just going to do one-offs of some of these projects? Are we going to do a major investment into something like, I'm not saying this, but say we took the $7.5 million and we built a community center, which I saw was a maybe in here. But then the teen center is on here also. That is now defunct, that there was a lot of anxiety and depression to our local teens So say you made the community center have a teen center and a senior center, and you could accommodate all those issues there. Is that the way we want to spend the money? I don't know if we've even talked about if we want to just get small chunks and use it, or do we want to do something kind of transformational? Do we want to use it for the parks? Like, we have all these parks requests out there that eventually are going to be capital hits to us. And I know there's the yes, no, maybe criteria, but the criteria is changing kind of as we go. And, maybe that's something we want to look at for the money and justify it by the impact to our youth and, residents. So I just feel like there needs to be more of a structure in what we're doing, almost like a project plan of how we're going from level to funnel. I think Chris used the word, what's the criteria to get it even, on the board. And I just don't know if we've even had a conversation amongst ourselves about how we want this to work.
Yeah, if I could just help a little bit, Wendy. So that permitted use question mark column, yes, maybe no. Again, that's based on the guidance as it currently exists. So some of the things such as the community center, we don't believe that that's a permitted use under the current guidance. So sort of our current framework, where we're hopeful that maybe we might see revisions later in the summer or fall. We don't know if that will happen for certain, but based on our current, sort of framework and the current guidance, we went ahead and again made our determination if it's a permitted use or it's not. Again, there were a few items that were a little bit of a gray area depending on what direction we go in ultimately, if we go in a direction with those items. So I think that column C is probably helpful, again, just to let you guys know which items we just don't think are a permitted use.
So it's not a hard no. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I just, first of all, I like Wendy's statement. Again, my sort of the filter that I'm going through the first cut is, are we using this for the greatest number of people? Because targeted folks who are sorely in need of it have received assistance through the various CARES Acts. I just think this is an opportunity for us as a community to help. I want us to touch as many people with the distribution of these funds, number one. And I really like, Wendy, I think you were saying, I'll put words in your mouth. How's that? I want to do something that's, grand. I want to do something that's grand scale, evolutionary. Like, this is the chance for us to do something that is larger rather than smaller. And that's dynamic shifting for our community as a whole. Big, grand, global thinking, grand picture. But then the last part is, I read through the comments and it's all so much related to pandemic, right? Pandemic is wellness to me. So why aren't, and please go back and give me the criteria, which is, I think you said is based upon demographics and whatever it is. Why aren't things like a holistic community center or something that is with the ambulance or with the police department that's public safety based, or mental health, which is related to to the pandemic, which is the wellness center, community center, having places to go. Why isn't that considered? That to me is where you could be bold in your thinking if it's around health, which is what this got us into this mess in the first place. So I'll stop there.
I don't disagree with you guys, but there's a simple, cold, hard fact here that if the finance director isn't comfortable with what we decide, she doesn't sign off on the use of the grants because we'll expose the town to a clawback if we're wrong. So, right, Amy, I mean, we need to be very careful with how we expend these funds. And if we bet on the wrong side of it, again, Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but we may have to pay those funds back. If we ultimately,
but how can we be wrong, Sean? How can we be? I mean, we have to. We just don't get a check. We have to ask for the money and for what we're using it for.
No, that's not the case.
Not for this grant. They're just giving us the money, and we are self-policing until they decide they want to come and audit us and said, "Yep, you did good," or "Nope, you didn't do so good, and we want our money back."
Well, let's buy an insurance policy then.
Again, and I want to go big too, guys, but again, there is exposure for us here, and we are not the type of community that the feds meant when they passed this, right? It's clear the way the language is set up. This was a beautifully written press release, but the brass tacks that we're seeing here is that they're making it very hard for communities like ours to spend the money. So it'll be interesting to see as we get through this. And honestly, I'm viewing it based on the requirements here that we're going to struggle to spend the entire 7.5. Not that we're going to have a problem on the other side where we're going to be picking and choosing winners and losers, but I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get all the way up to it. But I'm again, based on my discussions with town staff and other folks, I think we're going to be working hard to spend this entire allotment.
So that just leads me to the question, if you do any research on the internet, like every town, I think Dayton is one, multiple towns across the country are all grappling with this, right? And their town managers and their boards are looking into ways to use it. Some of the towns are setting up like a committee to analyze how it if it meets the criteria or not. And a lot of them are looking at using it for parks and recs, for sidewalks and things like that. So should I assume that those are they all fall into that QCT qualification? Because are we the only ones that are in this situation, and are there other towns that we could find out from how they're going to use it? Because maybe if there's a mass we're all going to use it for this and we're going to justify it this way, maybe that will get it through. I don't know, but just a lot of people are talking about a lot of ideas.
Yeah, if I could, kind of loop back to this qualified census tract. So if we had qualified census tracts, we would have a much greater amount of flexibility in how we could spend the money. But because we don't have qualified census tracts, essentially, a lot of the threshold questions come back to how did this specifically relate to the pandemic? So that is, again, one of the challenges that, again, a lot of smaller and medium-sized communities are grappling with. That's, again, what Amy and I are hearing from our counterparts, all throughout the state. So that's, unfortunate. In terms of infrastructure, again, one of the unfortunate challenges is that infrastructure was limited to 3 areas. Water improvements, which could be things like removing water lines that have lead in them, but we do not own a municipal water utility, right? So that's one of the 3 is out. The second piece under the infrastructure component was broadband. And again, unfortunately in Connecticut, we're not able to do our own municipal utility for that. The third piece is sewer improvements, certain sewer improvements. But again, I guess a good thing is we've been proactive and we've been maintaining our facility in a very good way. So again, our uses there are somewhat limited. So I was hopeful when I was hearing initially infrastructure, that would be great for things like sidewalk improvements and streetscape improvements and roadway improvements. But again, it was very limited to water, sewer, and broadband.
The other thing we haven't talked about tonight is when the right time would be to reach out to other stakeholders, where be it other boards or commissions or other community organizations that might have a perspective on this that we're not considering, whether it's aging and disability, Spirit Council, or something else.
Yeah, and as we talked about it, I think it's important that we engage the community, but I think what you're getting at, the timing is important as well. And I feel like we're still trying to figure out what's in and what's out, and I'm reticent to engage a bunch of groups without clear guidance on what we can and can't do for them or with them.
So, yeah,
right.
I think there's absolutely a community component here, but we've just got to make sure we know what we're asking for when we ask them for projects, and we're able to give them, the executive summary. Here are the 5 or 10 examples of what's in. Here are the 10 examples of what's out. Kind of like this spreadsheet in a compressed manner of some sort.
Hey, Amy, I have a question for you. Because I was going to bring this up in my Board of Ed report, but the Board of Ed did a PowerPoint presentation at their last meeting. They're getting that $981,000. And they seem to have like a structure that they have to have their application in. Does that application for them, they have to upfront get approval for how they're using it?
Yes. Their process is completely different through the State Department of Education than it is through OPM.
Okay, that sounds a little more structured than use it and we'll let you know if it fits the bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have to come up with a reopening plan, and then after the reopening plan, they have to submit for what they want to use the money on. Whereas on the town side, it's all self-policed.
It's crazy that they don't have to approve your usage. I mean, just.
I agree. I would rather have it go through approval and get the okay from them and not have to worry about it. But unfortunately,
I'll just say this is why you don't pass bills in an hour. But what do I know?
There's an insurance.
Correctamundo.
Well, it's going to help a lot of communities that are really hurt by the pandemic out in the country. So, you know, we were lucky. Yeah. A lot of them can use it.
So
What would, I'm sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
What's the timeline? When do we think we're going to have a little bit more guidance to follow up on Chris Peterson's idea of having a special meeting?
Yeah, good point.
Do you want to go down the our old famous subcommittee route, Eric, to make a recommendation to do some of the legwork between that so that meeting can be more structured? Or
I think that could make sense.
Yeah,
Wendy, you want to take a swing at this with me, Wendy?
Sure.
Yeah, Wendy's got a good handle on this stuff, I think, or far better than me. And Jackie and I are knee deep in short-term rental ordinance. We cannot sacrifice a second of our time.
Good.
Jackie has a really good handle on this too. I'm not taking full credit.
I'm just trying to help her. That's all.
Oh, you're trying to get her out of working on it?
Yeah.
We'll divide and conquer. Wendy and I'll take this one, and Jackie, you and Chris can lead us over the finish line. And Mike, you can go off into your blissful retirement, my friend.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm going to rid the community of bears.
Awesome.
Do we need
you give us deadlines, buddy, and tell us when to get it done.
Yeah, it works. Do we need a motion to form this working group?
That would be helpful. And just quickly to answer the question that have popped up about timeline, my recollection, and Amy, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that the federal government is taking comments on the interim guidance through some date in July. I just can't remember specifically which date. So I would think maybe August, maybe September, if there's some revised guidance, we may see it at that time frame. And again, just as that reminder, we'll be receiving the money. I believe it's through 2024. As long as we commit the money by 2024, we can spend it through 2026. So while we certainly want to get funds back out into the community to assist with recovery, we do have a little bit of time to do this.
I'll attempt a motion. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to form a work group of the Board of Selectmen to focus on, to provide recommendations to the full board on both process and potential uses of the ARPA funds?
Question? Oh, okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, now that's been moved and seconded. Who had a question?
I have a discussion item.
Yep.
So are we going to, is it up to us if we want to include additional people in this work group? This wasn't clear to me.
Yeah.
I should have added to the motion that Sean and Wendy would represent the Board of Selectmen. What are your thoughts on broadening the work group?
Could that be our first task?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, who we need to bring in.
Okay.
Broad enough to be intelligent, small enough to be nimble. And then again, obviously we would bring everything back here because nothing goes without the six of us. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor
Makes sense.
of forming the work group?
Aye.
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 I think I heard 6 ayes. Okay. Thank you. I think this is going to be a expedient way of moving it forward.
I've got a request, Maria. Could you send me that agenda item, agenda O, as a detached from the broader online agenda, please?
Oh
Just
my
that
gosh.
once.
Of
Okay.
course.
Thanks.
Yeah. Right after the meeting, I'll make sure to send the Excel.
No
spreadsheet
rush.
out to all
Just
of you.
this week. Don't
It's all right.
Get
No,
home.
I'll
have
get it to
dinner.
you guys.
Get
It's
home.
easy.
Have dinner.
All right. We've got one more item, which is P, which is proposed revisions to personnel rules and regulations, section 9.1, vacations and carryover vacation. Maria, can you just do a brief summary of this item? This is largely administrative in nature.
It is. I'll try not to bore you with too many of the details, but as we are shifting and getting ready, to head into our new technology around payroll and the HR system, I know I've shared with you all that we have, some antiquated Excel spreadsheets we're using on things, and again, so as we're preparing for that transition, we had to really rethink things like our vacation accrual process and how we track time and converting days to hours. So there's just been a lot of administrative work and thought around that. So with our ASME contracts that we settled within the last year, along with the dispatcher's contract, started to change some of the language in those contracts to help better position us for that transition as we move forward. So we'd like for the non-union staff to have that same language apply regarding vacation carryovers. One change that we are proposing as well, which is consistent with where we were heading with our other staff members, is right now the vacation forfeiture date is July 1st, which is a little bit of an odd time for us because many of our staff members, take time in the summer because we have budget season in the winter, we have snow plowing season in the winter. It's very difficult for our staff to take time in the winter. And they often take time throughout the summer. So having a vacation forfeiture date of July 1st is just not really practical. So for our other groups, you may recall we had started to shift that forfeiture date to November 1st on an annual basis. So that's probably the one substantive change. And the rest of it really, again, is just largely administrative for us.
Any questions for Maria? Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to approve the proposed changes to the personnel rules and regulations vacation carryover section?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Finally, appointments and resignations. Is there a motion effective June 14th, 2021 to reappoint Richard Jones, unaffiliated, as a regular member of the Board of Ethics with a term expiring on January 1, 2025?
Move that.
I'll move that. Second it.
Seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Is there a motion to accept the resignation of Ram Kaza as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, retroactive to May 10th, 2021? Also to accept the resignation of Umika Chopra as a regular member, student representative slot of the Spirit Council, effective today, June 14th, 2021. And also the resignation of Lori Wagner as a regular member of the Economic Development Commission, retroactive to June 7th, 2021.
Move those.
Second.
Mike, second with our thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Any feedback on the minutes from our last meeting on May 24th?
No.
Okay, great. What selectmen liaison and subcommittee reports do we have?
Well, I was going to report on the Board of Ed that their ARPA money, which we just talked about with Amy, so they're pretty structured in how they have to follow it. They did a nice PowerPoint. They presented some of their potential uses, and they have a nice timeline, whereas we don't. They also did a presentation. The Equity Council did a really good presentation of their data and the groupings of students from K through 12 that are have special ed needs. And there were some really major insights into that. And they're going to look into that to see how they can remediate it and work to make things more equitable across that. So, and the meetings are canceled for the Board of Ed through 8/24. So I don't have to go anymore for the summer.
School's out for summer, right?
School's out.
Maybe.
Just a quick one. We have a public safety meeting this Thursday. Nothing heavy on the agenda. But if folks have any comments or questions there, Maria and I had a good meeting with the folks from the ambulance last Monday, Maria. Last Monday, Pete Tadone came in and Karen Stewart, talking about call volume, staffing, how that organization is responding up and down to COVID, some of their capital needs as they get ready to embark on a new ambulance. So good opportunity to check in with those folks. It's very interesting, just some quick anecdotes from that. They did see call volume, Maria, keep me honest here, substantially might be too far, but meaningfully drop during COVID, and they are seeing that return to levels. If you recall from years ago, we talked about Car 17, which is the second ambulance. And it was much debate about what the right level of service and funding for that was. And the board and Karen have been taking a real proactive look at bringing the usage of the second ambulance down as needed with the lack of calls, honestly, and then now back up to where we should see that Car 17 staffed on a regular basis, especially during the heavier times. Karen was talking about, forgive me, Maria, I think was looking at a 9 to 7 model versus an 8 to 5. As there seems to be more on the beginning and then the ends of the day for 17. So what I took away from that is the ambulance is continuing to crunch their data. They were looking at their own call logs. With ours, we looked at mutual aid calls, both in and outward. And I think for the first time, and I want to be careful going too far with this, is there's a continued recognition and receptivity in this world to talking with other groups about synergies of service, usage of volunteers across departments and talents. So nothing further yet, but folks are recognizing, as we all see, the spirit of volunteerism is taking a hit with, double income families, obviously with COVID challenges and otherwise. Volunteerism, both on the giving side, on the financial and the time side, has taken a pretty substantial hit. So these, the organizations are in good shape, but there's a recognition that pool of volunteers continues to diminish. So what I took out of that is they've got a real good handle on their call volume, looking at their staffing needs, their capital needs, and then some of their future challenges as they continue to provide the service. So, Maria, anything else?
Thanks for that update, Sean.
Yeah.
You did a great job. That's a very nice overview.
All right. Thanks.
Welcome.
Anything else anyone else wanted to add? Okay. Was there anything under communication anyone had questions about? All right. We've got one more item. Is there a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss the acquisition and disposition of town property, the bike path easement and Holcomb parcel? We'd be joined by town manager Maria Capriola and town attorney Bob DeCrescenzo.
Move that.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and Mike Glidden as well.
And our planning director, Mike Glidden.
Include Mike too.
And I'm sorry, Sean, did you move that?
I did with Mike
Okay.
Glidden.
There's a second.
Second.
I heard Jackie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to dial in on audio.
Okay.
That's fine.